Hello, guys. Hope everyone's doing okay. As you probably heard in the email that I sent, we're gonna move to our to we're gonna move our class to an online class. That means that all the lectures, tutorials, and guidance is gonna be done through videos, as described in the email. Please let me know if you have any questions. Email me. I'll try my best to answer fast. And all the assignments are going to be due Friday at 6. So please make sure that you submit the assignment. There will be no late assignments allowed for this second part of the semester. So please let me know if you have any questions through email. I wanted to give you a quick overview of the how to download the trial version of Rhino. So as you can see here, I'm in my Rhino 3D website, and you can see this is the starting page. And what I want to do is go into my download page, and you're going to see that there is an area right here that says Rhino 6 for Windows evaluation, and that's the one that I want to try. When I click this, you're going to see that we have a form, and then you can put the email that you want to put your email address in there. You're going to hit next. And then they're going to send you an email to whatever email that you put on that form with the instructions of how to download the software. Very important. When you get the email, there's going to be a code in that email that you're going to have to input after you download the software, just to activate it as a evaluation software. Now, once you do all that, you're going to see that, I'm going to just jump back into Rhino. You're going to see that in here, you're going to see the Rhino 6 evaluation, and it's going to tell you how many days you have remaining of your trial period. I think 90 days is what they give you. I think that's more than enough for what we need, and you should have plenty of time to finish all the assignments that we're going to do for the second part of the semester. Jumping back into Rhino, you can see that this is the model that we're going to do for the second part of the semester. We're going to break it into different assignments. We're going to do the form first, then we're going to do the rafters and all the substructure. After that, we're going to do some skin work, which is going to be these bands that we have running here. And at the end, we're going to do some sort of skin system that we have running outside of our pavilion. I'm going to show you how it's broken down. And you can see here that we have our pavilion here, and I'm going to go into my layers, and you have this is the time where I'm going to be a little bit more strict on what you name the layers. I'm going to provide you with what I want you to name the layers, so please pay close attention to the package that I'm going to be sending you for the assignment, and please name them with those names. It's just going to make it easier for us when we start working in these assignments. So this is what we're going to work towards. Okay, so let's just start with the first assignment. The first assignment is going to be what we call the groundwork. And what the groundwork is going to be is just basically all our guides that are running below our pavilion. We show some sort of circles. You can see here some sort of circles with some lines. So we're going to work on that for our first assignment. And all these shapes, what they're doing, they're pretty much laying out some sort of guides for us to develop this surface. So let me turn off some layers so that you guys can see the surface that we're trying to create. And we're gonna click. So we just want to show the single surface. So this is a single surface, and what we're doing is pretty much we're just going to use this as a working point, and from this we're going to slice it, and then we're going to create more substructures like the rafters and the skin that I explained before. So let's just get back into the first assignment. So I'm going to go back to, this is going to be the handout that I'm going to give you. I'm probably just going to give you the handout with all the assignments. Please don't work in all of them. This is very important. This class, the second part of the semester, is structured in a way that we break it into chunks. Otherwise, it's going to be too much for you. So really important for assignment. We're going to call this assignment 6, I believe. For assignment 6, only work on 2 pages, and the 2 pages that we're going to work on is going to be this page here, which is the groundwork assignment, and this page here, which is just a single surface with, you can see that I provided all the layers in here, and all the layers are named a specific way. And this is going to help us down the line when we start doing some renderings and other stuff. So please keep the same name that we have here. Also importantly, you can see that every time I hit something on my keyboard, whatever I hit is going to appear here. So I'm trying to give you as much information as I can when I'm doing these assignments. That way you can see everything that I'm typing and everything that I'm clicking. That way it's going to be easier for me. As you guys know, I'm not there to, walk with you through the assignment, so I'm trying to make it as best as possible for you and I. So let's see how this works. Okay, so let's just work on this assignment. So what we're going to do, we're going to set up our profiles, and these profiles, what they are going to do, they're going to serve as a guideline to sweep the surface that I showed before. This surface has 2 rails. You can see here if you follow my mouse where it says R1, R2, R3. This is going to be our first rail, which is the right hand side rail. And then you can see L1, L2, L3, L4, L5. That's going to be our second rail, the left-hand side rail. You can see that it goes all the way here. And then these lines that you see here, those are going to be the profiles that are here. In the assignment, I didn't show which profile is which, so I'm just going to tell you right now. This profile right here, the one where my mouse is, this is going to be this profile in here, the one where I'm circling. The middle profile is going to be this profile right here, and then the last profile all the way up is going to be the smallest one. So pretty much it goes from big to small. So biggest, big, and then small. Okay, so just so that you know, I'm going to pull this window to my other screen, and I'm just going to refer back. But I would recommend that you print that handout and then just follow along as we're doing this. So I'm going to start in a brand new file. So I'm going to go into File, New. This is just my file that I had with everything, the one that I used to show everything. So I'm just going to say no. And remember, always start with the right template. And my template is going to be small object in inches. And I'm going to click open. This is going to start with a brand new file. with our layers. Okay, now we have our template open, and just like anything we've done before, let's just save this file. We're going to go File, Save As, and you could name it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it Working Pergola. I'm sorry, Working Pavillon. Enter. Okay, so we have our file saved. We have the right template, so let's just begin doing our profiles first. Then we do our rails, and then at the end we're just gonna sweep everything to create that surface. So let's start with the first profile. I'm just gonna make my top view. I'm gonna maximize it, and we're gonna do the one that is on your handout all the way to the left, all the way to the top, which is the biggest one, the one that is 5 feet wide by, I believe, 20 feet high. So you can see that it's broken down into certain dimensions, and there's a purpose to that. So let's just start by doing the exterior rectangle that you see. I'm going to click layer 1, and I'm going to hit my polyline button or type polyline, whichever one you pick. Now, where you start, it doesn't really matter as long as you have the right dimensions of this. So I'm just going to click this button here, and then I'm going to move it up to start drafting. You can see that right now my cursor is moving all over the place with the line. If yours is doing that, make sure that you enable the ortho mode so that it just restricted to that direction. So we're just going to type 10 feet with 11 inches, hit enter, and you can see that we have the distance that we want. We just got to pick what side of that distance we want to go towards. So we're going to go up, so I'm just going to click once. That's going to be my 10 feet 11 inches. Then I'm going to go up one more. It's going to be 9 feet 1 inch, enter, and then I'm going to click again, and then finally I'm going to go 5 feet over to the right, click once, and then go down, and then I just want to capture that point. If yours isn't doing it like mine is doing it, make sure that you enable your O snaps or your snaps. We talk about what they are. For now, just enable the end, mid. I'd like to do the intersection, and make sure that you enable this project. So that's going to enable, let me point, which is that. Project is going to enable that tracking that we want to, so that way we can do the intersection of those two. You can see that it says on my cursor, there's a little box that says INT, which stands for intersection. So I'm just going to click that because that's the intersection, and then once more to finish that rectangle, and then I'm going to click enter. So right now we've only done this box, and what we want to do is move it to the left. Now, before, on the first part of the semester, we learned about this command called move, which would let you move from one point to another point, and you would pick which those 2 points are. On the second part of the semester, we're going to start playing with something that is called the gumball, and what that is just an interactive display that lets you move things freely. It's not precise. That's one thing that you have to remember, that it's not precise, but if you use it, it's going to be a freely tool. That way it just lets you move things fast without being so precise. So I'm just going to leave it there. As you can see, when I select this, I have 3 points. Actually, I have 6 points. And those points are wherever I click for that 10 feet 11 and wherever I click for that 9-1. And if you want to see those points, you can enable this show curve points, which is going to show them there, and you can snap to those, and that's gonna serve the purpose of us using those points as guides when we're generating our curve profile. Let me pull it up to the side so that you could see. Pretty much we've done this rectangle right here. This dash line that you see here, we're going to talk about in a minute. But what I want to point out is that those points that we have are right there, right there, right there, right there. So we're going to use those points to generate these curves in here. And what those curves are going to be, they're going to be control point curves. So I'm going to click this button here. And the degree, we talked about what the degree is, how smooth things are. We're going to keep everything at 3 for now. So I'm just going to click this point. We're going to click the middle point in here between those 2 points right there. And then we're going to go back into this point and that point to finish. Notice that it's prompting me for another one. If yours is doing that, just hit enter, and that way it uses the last point that you click as your final point. I'm going to select this, and notice that when I click this curve object, I still have those points that I use as a reference that are shown for that curve. Pretty much what it's doing, it's using that point as a fillet point between this point and that point, so it's filleting that. That way it's creating that curve. The points that I use, I just want to point out, is this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can use those points on the you can find those points on the handout. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have those points right there. And then the other dash line, it's pretty much, there's certain type of curves that we can generate with this command. If I click and hold my left mouse button, you can see that I have more options. There's one that it says Interpolate Points. I'm going to click that, and I'm just going to click the same points. Notice how it's a little bit different. Just make sure that you're using the right one that we want to use. The one that we want to use is the control point curve. And that's what that second dash line was. That was just telling you that if yours looks somewhere up here, then you're probably using the wrong tool. So I'm just going to click and delete this one. So what I'm mostly concerned on in this assignment is for you to be able to do this rectangle and for you to be able to do this curve in here. All right, so I'm going to pause this and I'm going to do the other ones. They're pretty much very similar. I think there's no point of me showing you how to do them. That way you can just go right ahead in the assignment, and I'll be right back. All right, so we're back. A few things that I forgot to mention. Make sure that you rename your layers. I know I said this at the beginning of the class and I didn't follow it. Anyways, I took the time to rename my layers, and what those layers are going to be, again, uh, are described here in your handout. Follow those in there. You can see that I added an extra one. If you follow my mouse, you can see that where it says 00 groundwork, we have 00.1 dash line, which I have here, 00.2 grids, which we have here, and then I just added 00.3 curved line, which is going to be here in the same folder as the groundwork, and that's going to be for these curves that we're doing in here. We're just trying to keep everything in the layers that they have. Also follow the line type that we need. You can see that the dash line has hidden, and then the grids has hidden as well. Mine doesn't have it here, so let me just change it just to show you how it's done. You click on the line type here in your layers, and then you change it to hidden, and then click OK, and that should be hidden. It doesn't show in this workspace right now because our scale is really tiny. So if I zoom in, you can see that it should show. You can see the dash line there. Don't worry about that. All of those things are going to get fixed when we start doing our layouts later. So for now, that's fine. The next thing that we want to do is to lay out the circles that are going to drive the rails that we have in our pavilion here. These rails, as previously described, are these guys, the one with R1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then L1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those are going to be our rails, and those actually follow the intersection of the circles and the grid lines, which are these lines that you see here that are coming from the center of this circle in here, and this center of this circle as well here. So I'm going to pull this to the side, and we're going to do the circles and all the guys together. Make sure that you are on 00.2 grids as your default layer that you're working on. Make sure that you have that check mark in there. And the tools that we're using is just the polyline, the one that we always use. And then the circles, we can type circle for the command, or you can just follow my mouse and press it here, which is the same thing. So I'm just going to press it here and then zoom in. In this instance, I'm going to actually pick the 000 of, and this is actually, yep, that's right. In this instance, we're actually going to pick the 00 of our file, our origin point of our file. So I'm going to, with my center of circle command still on, I'm just going to type my coordinates. I'm just going to put 0, comma, 0, comma, 0. I'm going to hit enter, and that's just going to drill down into that origin point that we have there. And all we have to do is just specify either the diameter or the radius, whatever you have active. And if you're asking which one is it, the one that you have active, you can see here it's bolded. It says radius, so my active command is my radius. If I were to use that, I would have to specify the radius. In the handout, you're going to see that we have the diameter. So I'm just going to click the sub option of this circle command. I'm going to click diameter, and notice how it changes to diameter. For the first circle, and I'm starting from the inside, and I'm working my way out. For the first circle, you can see that is at 10 feet. So I'm just going to type 10 and then feet, and hit enter. And you can see that's my first circle. I believe we can put a center mark of it just so that we don't lose it. but the center mark is really tiny. It's more for the layouts when we start doing the layout. So I'm just gonna delete it for now. So we have a 10 feet circle, and the next one that we need is a 26 feet diameter and a 30 feet diameter. This instance, I'm just gonna type circle. So circle. I'm gonna do 0, 0, 0 for my origin point. Make sure that I have my diameter, and I'm going to say 26 feet. That looks a little bit big. Let me redo that one. 0, 0, 0. And diameter is going to be 26 feet. Okay. And then I'm going to do another one. 0, 0, 0. Hit enter. And I'm going to do 30 feet. Okay, yeah, that looks right. And I'm going to move these guys out of the way. And again, I'm just clicking my left button for my mouse. I'm just selecting them and then moving it with my gumball, the one that we just talked about, just to the side so that it's not on the way. Right now we have 3 circles, which are the ones that are on the lower part of your handout. And next we're gonna just draw the grid lines that we have emanating from the center of our first circle. So let's just do that. I'm just going to use polyline command. I can just type polyline or click the button, doesn't matter. And rather than just type 0, 0, 0 on and on and on, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make sure that I have my center snap enable. That is just going to, snap right to that center. And because we know that the center is at 0, 0, 0, we know that it's on the right location. So I'm just going to click the center and then make sure that your ortho is on. And we're just going to do a line that goes beyond the last circle that you did. So we're going to put it there. And then we're going to hit enter to finalize my line. And you can see that is rotated every 15 degrees all the way up till it reaches 90 degrees up. So let's do that. So we're just going to click rotate, select the object we want to rotate, hit enter. We'll make sure that we have the copy enabled. Yes, we want to copy. Pick the origin of the rotation of your command, which is going to be this endpoint or the center of your circle, which are the same thing. Click on that, and then we're going to click on our first point that we want to use as a reference, and then later we're going to click on the other point, which is going to be our final destination. So we're going to click that. Right now, you can see that it's not giving me a preview, and that's just because we have ortho on. If I enable that, you can see that now we have a preview of that. I'm just going to do 15, hit enter. And it did 15, but because I had the direction down, that's why it went down. So I'm just going to try it again. This time I'm going to go up. And it looks like it's going down. So in this instance, I'm going to do minus 15. Let's see what happens. Okay, now it's going up. So it's on a negative because we're going backwards, I guess. So we're going to do minus 30 for the second one. Minus 45. 60. 75. And then minus 90. And then I'm going to hit enter once again just to get out of that command. You can see that we have an extra one here. That's because when we did a positive 15 degrees, it just went the other way that we didn't want to. So we're just going to delete that. And I'm just going to undo one time just to show you something. Notice that whenever I click that, if there are two objects overlapped, we talked about this. What Rhino does, it shows you a list of available objects that are on the same place. So what this is, it means that two objects are on the same place. So we can either click the list or we can click the object. I'm just going to click this list item, and I'm just going to hit delete. That's going to delete the object, and then I'm going to delete once more to just delete the other object. Now, if I go back and just marquee selection tool, both of them at the same time, I can just do the same thing. All right, so we have our circles, 3 circles. We have our lines. Now we need to do more lines to the right just so that we can get to the center of our other circle. And let me just show you what we're doing. So we have the circle here, the 2 outer circles. This is our center line. So we're going to copy the last line that we did. We're going to copy it 1, 2, 3 times just to get to the center of that circle. All right, so let's copy that line 3 times to the right. And I'm just going to put this on my other screen, and that way you guys can see my Rhino window. So I'm going to select this line. I'm going to hit copy, select one of the points that are on my line, and we're going to go 1 foot 8 to the right. I don't have my ortho enabled, so it might be a little bit off, so I'm just going to undo, enable my ortho. Let's say copy. We're going to go 1 foot 8 inches, and then we're going to go copy again 1 foot 8 inches. And then we can, I think we talked about this last time, we can just use the last distance, use last direction to just copy on and on and on. Or we can just select one and then just say copy, and then pick the reference point of the previous one, and then just keep, copying to the right. It's the same thing, same result. So we have the 3 lines here, and now we know that this line is going to be part of the center of our other circle. And when I say part, is because we know that it's on this line, but we don't know the length from this circle to this circle. So you can see here that I provided that. So that's just 15 feet. Going up. So let's do that. So we're just going to do a line from this end, and then we're just going to copy it up 15 feet. Oops. Let's do that again. I hit the wrong key strokes. Copy. Go 15 feet. Enter. So that's 15 feet. The intersection of those two is going to be right there. So this is going to be our center for our next circle. So we're just going to type circle. Select the intersection of those two, and then the diameter. Make sure that you have the diameter sub option enabled. The diameter is going to be 10 feet. Okay. And then we have another circle with the same center at 20 feet diameter. So we're going to do circle, intersection of those two with the diameter of 20 feet. Okay. And then I'm just going to delete this one. We don't really need it. Okay, so we have our 3 circles. We have our 2 circles on the top. And then lastly, we need to do these grid lines, which are at 15 degrees, and then we have more grid lines on the top at 1 foot 8. So let's do those, and we can take this, and what we're gonna do, just so that we don't use this endpoint by mistake, we're gonna move that to the center of this circle. So we're gonna say center. Oops. So say move to the center. Okay. So now we know that it's right in the center, and we can just rotate from there. We can just probably trim this. So we're just gonna say trim. Pick our guide for the trimming, and then just pick the object left over that we want to trim, which is that. Okay. So I'm going to select that object now, and I'm going to say rotate. Pick the center of my circle, pick the point that I want to move it from, and then pick the point that I want to move it to. I'm going to enable ortho so that I can see a preview. So I'm just going to say 15, and this time it is going the right way, so I'm going to say 15, and I'm going to say 30, 45, 60, 75, and then just 90. I'm going to hit enter once more to finalize that command. And we can see that we have our grid lines that are going 15 degrees up, and all we have to do now is just copy this line 3 times, add 1 foot 8. It's going the wrong direction, so let's make sure that we enable our ortho. So 1 foot 8 going up. I'm just going to use the previous technique. So I'll use the last endpoint, and I believe I made an extra one. So 1, 2, 3. Actually, no, that's fine. So we have 3. Just to double check, this last line should end up right at the upper quadrant of your circle. You can see here, see how it lands right there on the upper quadrant of that circle, and we have the circle, and everything is nice and neat. You can see that the lines for these grid lines, actually they all follow a certain distance. You can see that ours is a little bit too much on this outer edge, and that's because we didn't really give the dimension that that would work with that. So what we could do is just make a circle here, and we could use that temporary circle just to trim. So notice that I'm using my trim command. I'm picking the temporary circle, and I'm just deleting the excess of those lines just so that it looks nice in here. And then at the end I can just select that circle and then just delete it. You know, it just makes it a little bit easier to read there. Now that we have that, what we need to do is do the right and left rails that we have here. Notice that I took the time to say to specify what point you are supposed to click. The R1, R2, R3, those are actually points. So the intersection of this line, if you follow my mouse, this line and then this circle, that's going to be R1. And the intersection of this line right here and this circle is going to be R2. So R1, R2, R3, R4 are the points that you need to touch when you're doing your curve line. So let's just do that. So I'm going to click my control point curve. I'm going to pick this intersection, this intersection, this intersection, and R4 is going to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, this intersection right there, and this intersection right there. And then I didn't specify the intersection here, but it's just perpendicular up, which is this one. And then I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so it should look something like this. It looks a little bit different than the handout, and I believe that's because we use the Interpolate tool on this one. Let me just make sure. So right now I'm using the Interpolate points to generate my curve. So I'm going to click this one, and I'm going to do the left one. So L1, 3, L2, 3, L4, and L5, and I'm going to hit enter to finalize that. And you can see that one looks more like it, although you can see that I messed up one. You can see the L3 is not on the right spot because I only use the outer circle. I use L1, L2, and I did L3 here, which it should have been here. So let me just redo that now that we know the right tool that we need to use. So I'm going to delete this one, delete this one. I'm going to activate this curve line, and I'm going to change the color so you can see it better. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so I am going to click here, leave it pressed, and then just say Interpolate Points. I'm going to select, let's finish this one, L1, L2, L3 should be down here, L4, and then L5 is going to be perpendicular up to L4, and I hit enter to confirm, and I'm going to run the same command again. So now rather than going back and clicking here, leaving it pressed, and then just finding our tool, since we already used it before, we can just hit enter, and then it just remembers our last command, and then it starts the interpolate curve again. So I'm going to use the intersection of these two, intersection of these two, intersection there, and intersection right there, right there, and then finally R6 is going to be perpendicular to R5 up. So I'm going to click that. And you can see that it is perpendicular because we have our project on. You can see a gray line that is going up and down. That is showing you that it's actually perpendicular and it's orthogonal. So I'm going to click that and then hit enter once more to finalize. So now we have our circles, our rails, and our grid in here. Now the next step is going to be how to take these curves that we have here and orient them here so that we can start sweeping our pavilion. Okay, so for the last part of this tutorial, we need to move the profiles to certain areas of our intersection of our lines and our circles, and what we need to do is first rotate them in 3D and then orient them in the right direction. What is the right direction? The right direction is specified here, and as I already mentioned, this is going to be the smallest one, this is going to be the medium one, and this is going to be the highest one. And you can see it in here. This is actually the same orientation as that. So this is smallest one, medium one, and then this is going to be the highest one on the back in there. So I should probably mention that the smallest one, which is this one, is located between L1 and R1. The medium one is located between L3 and R3. And then the biggest one is located between L5 and R6. So let's do that. And one more thing to mention is I took the time to write a few of the commands that we use in here. You can see that we have curves, points on. Right now we're going to do the Orient and the Rotate 3D, later on the Sweep 2. But all of these guys are going to be reference for you guys in case you are taking notes, or you don't remember, or you don't want to rewind the video. So they're going to be here in case you need them. Okay, so let's jump back into Rhino, and then let's switch to perspective. That way we can start rotating things around. So we're going to start with the rotate 3D command. So we're just going to type rotate 3D and then hit enter. And I am going to actually, before we do that, let's just make a copy of this, because we need to show these guys on the layout in plan view, so we just don't want to lose those. So we're just going to make a copy to the right and jump back into 3D. These guys, the ones on the right, we're going to rotate, and then we're just going to delete these guys later on. So let's just start with rotate 3D, select the smallest one, and I hit enter. Once I do that, I have to specify the axis of rotation. That's going to be the center in which this object is going to revolve on. So I'm going to pick the beginning and end points of my shape. And you can see that once I do that, the circle is perpendicular to that line that I just drew. And that's going to enable me to just rotate it either up or down. And we just want to move it up 90 degrees up in a way that is oriented this way. So that's what we're trying to do. Now, we can achieve the same thing by using the gumball, and we can select the arc right there. And if you can see here, we have these arcs in there. So what those arcs are, they're going to let you rotate depending either if you have your ortho on or off. Right now, if I have it on, they snap every 90 degrees to any direction. If I have this off, when I rotate, I freely rotate this however I want. So let's just bring ortho back, because we want to be a little bit precise when we're using the gumball. So I'm going to rotate it up. Red means the C direction, and the other colors mean the Y and X. Now that I have it that way, all I can do is just move this object to the right place in there. You can see it didn't move on 3D, and that's because I have it enabled to just snap there, but it doesn't really matter for what we're doing. So I'm just going to rotate them 90 degrees up, which is there. And now I have these guys rotated up. I'm going to delete my blue rectangles that we have there. And now let's move them to these places. So rather than typing move, moving it to here and then rotating it, that would be 3 commands. Rather than doing that, let's just use one command that is called Orient, which is going to do the same thing, but it's going to be easier. So let's just type Orient, click enter. So we're going to click the object that we want to orient, hit enter. And we're going to pick 2 reference points on that object. You can see that we have 1 there, and then I'm going to click the other point there. That's going to be my second point to orient. And now we're going to pick the target. Where do we want to move those to? So I'm going to pick this point and that point. Notice that it's doing the 2 commands at the same time. So I'm just going to click there, intersection of those 2, and that moved that curve there. So let's run it. Excuse me. Let's run it again. So orient. Click that, and that's going to be okay. So I'm trying to move this, and when I run my orient and I select this object, when I hover over my endpoint and I try to get my endpoint, notice that my endpoint is actually jumping back up. And that's what I was talking about when I rotated this in 3D. I have the project mode on, so make sure that when you're doing this, you disable this project mode because it's projecting to my current C plane, which is up here. See how it's up there? So I'm going to disable this project option down here. I'm going to run the command again, so I'm going to type orient. Select my object. Now notice that now I can pick this endpoint and this endpoint right there, and this is going to go. Let me just show you L3, R3, and then the other one is all the way at the end. And so this is going to go right there. Okay. And then let's just do the last one. Okay, so now we have the 3 arcs oriented the right way in our groundwork in there. So if you're probably wondering how come we just didn't orient that arc from this instance all the way there, and that's because if you were to do that, it keeps the same orientation. Notice how it's flat in the ground, so that's why we took the time to rotate it 3D up and then just orient it, just so that we could have it laying up this way. So that's why we did it. Now, the last part that we need to do is just sweep this. And we talked about sweep command. We talked about sweep 1. This time we're going to use sweep 2. And all that is just using 2 rails with multiple profiles. So the profiles are the arcs that it's using to generate the surface. So we're going to type sweep 2. And then follow the prompts when you run this command. It's very easy to get confused when you're doing the sweeps because sometimes you don't have to hit enter to advance to the next prompt that they're asking for. So you can see here that it says select first rail. We're going to use the right one for our first rail, and there it is. Second rail, we didn't hit enter, so just make sure that you follow the prompt. So second rail, and now it's asking for the section curves, and we're going to pick that as a section curve, pick that as a section curve, and pick that as the section curve. And notice that we have this pop-up window. Before we just hit OK, if we start to messing around with the rebuild and start adding more constraints to this, we can actually make it a more refined mesh in here. Notice how at 10 it's very loose. So if I increase to 20 in here, notice how it's got more subdivision. So the more control points that you have, the more smoother it's going to be. So I'm going to leave it at 20 in here. Um, I'm going to click OK. And right now, I have it like that because we are in the wireframe mode, but I'm going to switch it to shaded just to see what we got. And this is the result of our single surface in there. And notice that my single surface is actually on the wrong layer. So make sure you, after you complete this single surface, move it to the right layer. So I'm going to change this and then change the color. And again, make sure that you don't pick any yellow because yellow is the current active element. And if you do that, you're not going to know what object you have selected. So now it looks like that. And that's pretty much it for the first assignment. Now, what you guys need to do is take the time to set up a layout to put all of the groundwork, line work that we did and dimension it, which I cover how to do it on the previous classes. And also, we need to do these tags that we have here. We have 1, 2, 3, which are the points that we selected. And what that's going to be the dot command. And let me just do one of them so that you guys know how to do it. So I'm going to call this assignment 6, and this is going to be the Rhino PDF 11 by 17, not portrait but landscape. And we're going to click OK. Okay, so now we have those 3 in there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select that. And now I'm using my gumball just to make my viewport smaller. And if you see this handout, you're going to see that we have a layout in here, and then we have dimensions. So let's follow that convention. I'm going to make this bigger so that we can see what's going on. Make a new layer. We call underscore layout. Enter. We're going to make a sub layer, which is going to be dimensions. And we're going to make another sublayer under layout, which is going to be viewports. And the reason why we're doing that is because I'm just changing the color right now of the viewport, because we want to make our print width of the viewport no print, so that we don't see the outer box in there. So we're going to change that to viewport layer. And when we do a preview of this, you guys can see that the outer line of the viewport is not shown. That's the whole reason why we did the no print. So that's what we're going to do for all the viewports on the second part of the semester. Hit close. Okay, now as far as the dimensions and the dots, what you need to do is just run the dot command, and that's going to bring this window here, and the text that you want to display, that text is going to be what you see here on this tag. So for this instance, I'm going to pick 1. I'm going to say 1. I'm going to click Arial 14 is fine, so I'm just going to click OK. And notice that now I have that tag going on in there, so I'm just going to put it there. And please follow where these dot tags are on. Make sure they work with the dimensions. They could be in the dimension layer, that's fine. Let me just make one dimension. And notice that I'm doing these dimensions. I'm not actually doing them on inside the viewport. I'm actually doing it outside where the layout is. From now on, let's just do that on this second part of the semester. We're going to do them all outside, and they're all going to be located in the layout, and they're not going to be located in our model. It just, for this second part of the semester, we're not doing any dimensions with isometrics, so we don't need to do that. So we're going to put them in here. If yours look this big, make sure you go into Properties. There's this linear dimension button there. Click that, and make sure that the style that you pick is foot-inch architectural, and that should take care of how they look in there. And just follow dimensions as we have it in the handout. The next thing is the center line of the circle. So I'm going to go back in there. I am actually going to copy this, and I am going to make it bigger just so that we show this. Okay, and I am going to turn off our surface in this active viewport because I don't want to see my surface. Now, don't turn it off in here because this is a global on and off layer change, but rather turn it off in the right hand side here. That way it's only off in the viewport. You can see that I just clicked there and it disappeared here, but if I go in my perspective, it's still there, so we don't need to turn it off from the model. So I'm going to go back to my page. Page 1, even though we name it assignment 6, and this is just a Rhino thing, sometimes when you start a sheet, it doesn't automatically change, so we're going to change it. So assignment 6, and we're going to do that center mark there. So we're going to say center mark. Notice that I am outside of the viewport. I'm not inside, and I can't really select. I just double click. That's how I got in. And right now I'm stuck in my viewport, and that's because I didn't lock it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click the locked, and now I can zoom out. Notice how I got stuck in there. So if that happens to you, if you're inside, just go to your properties and then click locked and then zoom out. That way you can get out of it. Now after you're out of that, click the button again for the locked, and then just move it to where you had it before. After you do that, make sure you lock it back so that it doesn't happen again. But anyways, if you do center mark and try to select that, it is not going to let you. So you have to be inside. So center mark. And now because we're in the layout, that's why it appears bigger. Even though it's in the model, if I go back to my model, you're going to see it right there. There's my center line. It's really tiny, so it reacts to whatever scale we have. And for the scale, I didn't give you one, so I believe it's 48. Yes, so make it 48 for this one. Let me just make sure that it's center. I'm gonna lock it, so it's 48. For this one, we're gonna make it for this one, we're gonna make it 84 is fine. And if you change the scale of the viewport, you might need to change the dimensions. You might need to relocate the dimensions because sometimes they don't follow. Well, actually they do sometimes. So just keep an eye on that. Sometimes they don't follow what you have in there. So if they don't, you might have to redo them. I'm gonna click that. Um, okay, so we have that center mark. The last part is how do we do the diameter that we show in here with the arrow. Um, so to do that, there's a whole set of tools that you can use that are called drafting under the drafting tab. You can pick the one that says diameter dimension. So we can click this and we can select. Now this one lets you select from outside of the viewport, and then you can specify the diameter there. Notice that is really big, and again, it's the same thing as changing that to foot, inch, architectural. It does a center line for you too, so you could probably delete this and then just keep the one for the diameter. One quick thing that I didn't mention before, if you go into the options for Rhino, if you go into under document properties, under annotation styles, the default for each and every dimension that you do is going to be this item right here, which is the default. If you switch it to foot, inch, architectural, and say okay, now from now on, every dimension that you do is going to be foot, inch, architectural. So let's just give that a try. Yeah, so it's doing it now. So make sure that you set that up before you do all these dimensions. That way you don't waste your time changing each and every one of them individually. So that's pretty much it for the first for the assignment 6. Please follow the handout that I have provided you and email me if there are any questions or concerns. Good luck, guys.